Hello, friends. This is Connor. I am in my truck. We are on site at ASP Appalachia Service Project today for this episode of the You and Youth podcast. So, a little bit different than what we normally do. But super excited. We're going to be recording some other episodes this week with our students who are on this trip. And it's really exciting. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you can check the YouTube out, see the inside of my truck. I'm not going to give you a tour or anything, but this is my captain's seat for the week, so to speak. And I figured today we would talk about judgment. Judgment is something that I think is an important topic for all of our teens, something that they either deal with or that they do on a week-to-week basis, and is something that really kind of is a part of the process of them becoming them, for better or for worse. One of the things that we do here at ASP, or that I like to do and have our kids do every time that we're down here, is I like to start them off with a devotional that is oriented around judgment. We come here to these beautiful rolling hills, and we experience a lot of new things. And new things can be really exciting. Some kids are really good about, stepping into a brand new environment and rolling with it and not having a single issue. Others, not so much. We have kind of a mix of those, and your kid may be one or the other, or maybe in the middle, wherever they are on that kind of journey of experiencing new things and how they process that. It can be a very diverse thing for you as a parent, to even amongst different kids in your family. Your oldest may be good at rolling with the punches because they're the oldest. They've experienced everything with you for the first time as a parent, and maybe your younger children are more used to having the path set for them. And when they are out of their comfort zone, it's a little bit different for them. So, but back to the point of what I'm saying. Judgment. We have our kids do at the beginning of each week a quick devotional that talks about judgment, because as beautiful as this area is, we also come to communities that are vastly different than ours. Our church is located in Hudson, Ohio. For those of you who may not be local listeners, Hudson, Ohio is a very affluent area. It's a nice area, well-funded school systems, well-kept community, and very different from the kind of communities that we visit here and spend a week here in Appalachia with. These communities are in much different economic situations than the ones that our kids are used to. And so they are experiencing a lot of things likely for the first time, especially if they're first timers on this trip. Just this week, we're experiencing a facility that is incredibly different from what they're used to out of what their imagination of what a school is. We're staying in what used to be a school here in Appalachia, and it is definitely one that's on the older side, one that, as communities with underfunded school systems struggle to keep up with their properties, one that's kind of fallen into deterioration a little bit. So this is a very new experience for many of our kids and for some of our adults too. And so when we experience new things, we cast judgment. And this devotional that we put our kids through, it starts with that moment. It starts with this moment where you've experienced something for the first time, and subconsciously we're making a snap decision, an interpretation, a judgment about it. So often I think judgment can be thought of in a very negative connotation, and that's okay. Judgment, I think, when we think of it in that negative connotation, it's when we act on that judgment is where we get that negative connotation from. But I want to pull it back just a little bit when we think about judgment. Judgment is instinctive. Judgment keeps us alive. Judgment is our ability to tell as human beings what is a dangerous situation and what is not. Judgment helps us filter those things out. So this devotional teaches our kids to, when they experience something or someone that is unfamiliar, and they start to feel that sense of, this is different, this is not what I'm used to, this devotional points that out. There's always that moment. We all have this moment, whether as kids or adults. Adults were able to process this a little bit easier than kids. But we have these moments where we encounter something unfamiliar and we make a judgment about it. And I want to distinguish judgment from prejudice, which I'll do in a little bit. But we teach our kids to recognize that they're making judgments, that something about this environment, something about this person that they're interacting with is different. And that's okay. Judgment is okay. Judgment is what helps us stay within our comfort zones, which can be a good thing, keeps us safe. But when judgment becomes unhealthy is when we stick with our initial gut reactions rather than continuing to be curious. So this year we titled this devotional, Be Curious, Not Judgmental. For those of you who are Ted Lasso fans, that famous quote from that incredible series, no free ads, but I really love that show a lot. And so be curious, not judgmental. That's not to say that they're never going to have a judgment, because that is impossible. We humans are hardwired to make judgments, to interpret the world around us and what is going on in it, and make decisions based off of that. Where judgment becomes harmful is when we let judgment and those initial face value judgments with no deeper information turn into opinions, turn into prejudices. Prejudices? I'm not gonna be grammatical here today. But so when our judgments turn into prejudice, that's when judgment becomes harmful. So one of the ways that we teach our kids to keep from turning judgment into prejudice is to be curious, ask questions, get to know the environment, get to know the people around you. And once you start digging there, that's when you start to figure out is your common ground. What are the things that you have in common? What are the things that maybe surprised you about this person, that, you know, maybe they have a story to tell that is really impactful and is really inspirational, something that you wouldn't have assumed about them otherwise. It's that deeper piece of the curiosity that we can move past judgment into that really is the important part for us as humans, as kids, as adults, all across that age spectrum, all across life. We have these opportunities to become curious. And it's really a hallmark of, I think, our faith community at First Church Hudson. We're always saying this phrase, wherever you are on your journey, we'll meet you there. And that tagline, while it doesn't say anything about curiosity, I always think that there's an element, you have to have an element of curiosity to be able to meet someone where they are, because where they are is not likely where you're comfortable being. Because if you're over here and they're over there, that takes some self-sacrifice to make that move, to move from where you are to where they are, and to understand where they are, and to really truly move past the judgments about what you may see on the surface about who they are and where they are. And I think this is an important message for kids because this is something that they are experiencing on a daily basis in their school lives, in their personal lives. You know, kids, especially in middle school and into high school, are starting to figure out who they are. So as they figure out who they are, they're figuring out, okay, what's important to me? What's important to the people around me? And is it important to me that I be important to the people around me? Or is it important to me that I stick with what's important to me and let people come to me or seek people out who find those same values important? It's a lesson that every kid learns. It's a lesson that often comes with a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of relationship challenges with friends, if they're dating significant others. And that judgment piece of it is such a focal point in those students' lives right now. In a way that I think we always want to jump to the don't judge other people, which is a good message. It's a good message, but I think it misses what we're actually trying to say is don't let your initial reactions to how this person presents be the final story. Don't judge a book by its cover. Read the book. Understand what's going on underneath the surface. Understand the human that is beneath the surface. Something that kids struggle with. That's a task that, as they develop, becomes easier and easier as they're able to grasp nuance, as they're able to understand that what's presented to them at face value does not tell the complete story. And as they're able to articulate it, it becomes so much easier. You know, when a student maybe is bullied for the first time, it's such a painful moment to watch, because your student is your kid. The kid that you love so much is now being the subject of somebody else's judgment and somebody else's willingness to let that prejudice sink in and let that shape themselves. You know, the age-old adage is that when a bully bullies, it's not about who is being bullied. It's more to do with what is going on in the bully's life, which is absolutely true. It's certainly not an excuse for that behavior, but it's an opportunity for us to have some grace for those students who may be going through a lot in their home life and are taking it out on the students around them, and seeing the little things, the little differences that make our kids unique, and pointing them out and making them feel other for it. And that's not okay. But it is so important that we understand why this is happening. And when we can explain it to our kids that, you know, it's not about the things that are making them unique that are the reason that they're being bullied. It's that bully is going through something. That bully is then in a place where they're not thinking in a healthy way, and they're seeing the things that are different about other people, and they're pointing attention to that so that the attention is pointed away from them and what they're going through. It's a really important thing to make sure that our kids learn this as well, so that they can employ that too. If they're having a bad day, they don't jump to a snap decision or a snap judgment about someone else and try to make them feel less than or othered, so to speak. It's a really important thing to teach them that when we see something different about someone, that we pause and say, there's a person there. What's behind the cover? What's behind the face that you're seeing, or the, you know, however maybe they dress in a certain way that's different than the norm. You know, what's beyond what's being presented. And it's so fickle. It's so fickle. You know, we're here on day 2 of our mission trip right now, And, we have two different groups with us. We've got the youth group from First Church Hudson and the youth group from Medina United Church of Christ in Medina, Ohio. And it's been interesting to see who from each group is kind of coming together and interacting and socializing at the very early parts of the week. And you start to see, the kids that kind of have these similar outward interests, the way they dress, the way they act, those kids tend to flock to each other, which is human nature. We flock to what we're familiar to. We have those comfort zones. And it's difficult for us at any age to go outside of those comfort zones. And then you have those kids that maybe don't necessarily fit any of those traditional norms, that kind of hang out on the edges, that maybe they would rather be hanging out with the adults or something like that. You see it play out in a lot of those ways, and you want to feel bad sometimes, I think, for those kids that don't get that aren't necessarily welcomed into the flock with open arms right away. It's certainly not like they're being intentionally excluded. Sometimes they are. I think oftentimes it's not an intentional thing for a teenager to exclude someone. It's a really challenging thing for a teen to be outgoing and to be intentional about welcoming a peer that may be different for them. But encouraging that is so important. Making sure that they understand that, we are all on the same footing as far as what kind of love we deserve, what kind of dignity that we deserve from other people, is so, so important. But to say that cliques are bad, cliques should be, in youth ministry, I think the idea that cliques are a thing, some people are just like, we got to mix the kids up at every opportunity that we have so that they're building relationships with kids that they absolutely never would in any other setting. I think that's great in the ideal world, but it's impossible to practice at every turn, because we don't want to ignore that, people build relationships across commonality, and where there is more commonality, there is more room for relationship. It's that moment where we say, okay, like, is this person actually that different? That's the question that we want to be encouraging our teens to ask. Is this person who dresses way differently than me, participates in different school clubs or school programs than me, is this person actually different from me? Or do they go through the same problems that I go through on a daily basis? Do they have the same challenges with friends? Do they have, any sort of problems in their life that I can also connect to? What makes us human together? Those are the questions that we want to try and train our kids to ask. So that's kind of how we start the week at ASP, is saying, look at the world around you that is so different. Where are the beautiful things? Where are the things that we can use to help us move past the judgment and avoid prejudice and avoid making action or taking action on that prejudice? And that's really, I think, the message that I've got today is be curious, not judgmental. Teach kids to be curious, encourage questions. I'm never a fan of the idea that there is a dumb question, because when we say there is a dumb question, that means curiosity is dumb, and that means our comfort zone is the best. And that's not the case. Curiosity is the best. And our comfort zones are great, but sometimes we need to push ourselves, and sometimes we need to take that step outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. So friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the UN Youth Podcast. In the truck here at ASP, come August, you'll be seeing more content from us out of the truck. You'll be seeing student interviews here about their experience here at ASP and what that's been like. You'll hear from newbies, you'll hear from our seasoned veteran students, and maybe even some parents too that want to step in the truck and talk about what they see in their kids. Maybe they're here with us on the week, maybe they've been in the past with their kids, and they'll talk about what they want to see or what they see from their students on this incredibly formative week. So be sure to like and share all of our posts. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Please give us a follow on your favorite social platform and on your favorite podcasting platform. Give us a review. We love 5-star reviews, but we also want you to be honest. So if you do have feedback, you can also go to HudsonUCC.org/podcasts and click on our mailbag link, and you can give us feedback, ask questions, all of the things that you want to see and help us drive our content for you. So friends, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time on the You and Youth podcast, a podcast for parents looking to raise their kids in a complex world with a faith that can keep up. We'll see you next time.